Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us today. Really excited to have you. Today is Monday, March 29th, 2021, and we are in the final week of the POOLaide Webinars. So really excited to have two great sessions coming up this week, and all of those recordings, getting those posted on YouTube during the month of April. It's been a really interesting month, lots of different sessions this year, lots of different topics, and I really appreciate you joining me for the penultimate session today. It's going to be a really great session. So welcome those of you who have been coming out to many of the webinars this month, as well as to those of you who might be new. My name is Katie Crysdale from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. And we started the POOLaide webinars in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And people often ask me what kind of foresight I had. How did I have a crystal ball and know that webinars and online professional development would become a thing? And I honestly didn't know. I had no direct personal experience with webinars. I'd maybe attended one or two in the course of my professional career as an aquatic supervisor for a municipality, but didn't have a lot of experience with Zoom or online broadcasting, just had the inclination to pull together different experts to talk about different topics. And it was a tremendous success in 2020. And I was really excited that for 2021, we were able to bring back this free professional development opportunity and expand outside of the speakers we had last year to some different types of speakers for 2021. A lot of the speakers that I chose for the webinars throughout 2021 were different areas of aquatics, the swimming pool industry that I consistently see as deficient or underserved. So we've had a particular focus this year on accessibility and diversity with different aquatic populations. So we had a session Monday, March 1st. That recording is now posted on our YouTube channel, making swimming pools more accessible to trans youth and trans populations. Coming up on Wednesday, March 3rd, I'll be posting that recording later today. I did get it back from our video guy. I just need to do a final review. That is a session we had with Kathleen Forrestel about being blind or partially sighted and her experience using different swimming pools. And then we've had a variety of other sessions throughout the month of March. We've looked at infrastructure, everything from water slides to air quality last week, to project management, so renovation and construction, large-scale projects of swimming pools. We've also been looking at different research. So we had Dr. Audrey Giles on talking about working with Aboriginal communities in Canada, First Nations communities, how we can make our pools more accessible and serve different populations with different needs. Coming up this week, we're going to be looking more at the advertising side of things. So Lakeview Aquatic Consultants is a private for-profit business, and so we have to be more competitive than I was as an aquatic facility manager at a public nonprofit facility. And it's been really interesting for me to make that leap as a person and learn more about advertising, including social media, as well as writing things such as PR and copy, newsletters, leaflets, flyers, all of that. And I discovered pretty early on that social media was really important, including Instagram and Facebook. And really excited that this week's sessions are going to be focusing on those particular areas of improvement to your aquatic facility. So let me go ahead, and I've posted in the chat box. I'm going to pin that for those of you who are jumping on. We've got the show notes for today are available in the chat box. Let me go ahead and post the link for our session, for our YouTube channel. Sorry. You can go ahead and go back and watch the recording for the Monday, March 1st POOLaide webinar that has been uploaded. And I'm going to be getting the Wednesday, March 3rd webinar up later today. You can also always go back and see all of the 2020 webinars. So if you did not participate in the webinars that we had last year, we had over 25 webinars. There's 48 hours of free content available on YouTube. And then all of the show notes are linked on YouTube from our website, which is lakeviewAquaticConsultants.com. You can go to the POOLaide menu and drop down to 2020 to catch up on any of the resources that our presenters provided during their sessions either last year or this year. So lots of great information there. And I also want to let you know, for those of you jumping on for today's session, our presenter today has provided a selection of slides that you can go to the show notes for today and download. She'll be talking, as always, throughout the session about different pieces that are going to be relating to revenue and thinking about how photography can improve your business. But really, really some great information on the slides, as well as some videos that we'll be watching. And for those of you that were here last week we had lots of technical difficulties. We've done our orientation, we've done our practice. So fingers crossed, and my stress level anyway, that everything runs as smoothly as possible. So welcome to everyone who is joining us. If you can pop your location in the chat box, that's really nice for our presenter to see where you are located, whether in Canada or the US. If you can pop in your city or your state, let us know where you are joining us today. I also want to go ahead and mention that our final session will be on Wednesday for this year. So we've just had the webinars throughout the month of March. And coming up on Wednesday will be our final session, and it is going to be on TikTok. So I know this is a session that there was a lot of requests for us to do last year. And frankly, TikTok was so new for me last year that I had difficulty finding somebody who had a real following on TikTok in the aquatics industry. I didn't want to invite somebody from either dry recreation or beauty or general fitness, because aquatics, as we all know, is quite a bit different. So really excited that I found Darcy. She does have a TikTok specific account that is about lifeguarding, swimming instructors. It's very on the nose, those of you who have spent any time in the industry. So really looking forward to her session on Wednesday. She'll be chatting about TikTok and how she uses it officially at her workplace as a recruitment tool, advertising the pool's profile in the community. Darcy is located in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario, and she's got over 5,000 followers, which is pretty impressive on any platform, frankly. So looking forward to you joining us on Wednesday. We're going to be starting today's session in a couple of minutes. I'm going to give people an opportunity to recognize that the hour is flipping over. As you're entering into the chat room, please let us know your location in the chat box. That's helpful for our presenter today to see whereabouts you are, either in Canada or the US. I am located outside of Calgary, Alberta. We had snow last night. We had really, really high winds. So we've dropped back down to about -10 Celsius, or maybe I think that's about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So a bit of a shock to the system, even though most Canadians will tell you it's possible to get snow up into April. But even I've surprised myself by how kind of upset I am that it's now cold out and had to turn the heat back on and pull out some socks. So I see Michelle is here from Stratford, also had some snow yesterday. So let us know where you're located. Colm is here from Minnesota. I see some other names, but always good for our presenter to have a sense where people are from. Melissa is here from Elmer. Laura is here from Cold Lake, also snow. Stephen is here from Maryland. So I will be introducing our presenter in a minute or two, but I do want to give some background about how I came across our presenter. So our presenter today is somebody that I would say met through Instagram, as many of us do on social media now. If you ever are on Instagram and you go to the page where it suggests other feeds you should follow or other topics you can look up, if you ever go down the rabbit trail of underwater photography, when it comes to swimming pools, there is some really, really good content, and then there's some really, really bad content. And so I first came across Sarah's account, Flash Pool Productions, I think at least a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was just really taken with the content that she shared because it is more creative than what I've seen. So a lot of pool photography that I've typically seen is very, obvious, very linear. The person is swimming across the surface of the pool, or the person is swimming across the bottom of the pool, or it's just very, very either athletic or very, very traditional. And so what I love about Sarah's account, and I would encourage you to go browse it, it is linked on the show notes, and we'll get her to pop her Instagram tag in the chat box, is that I think it's so much more creative and it's got so much more personality and vibrancy, especially when it comes to colors and props and different perspectives. And unlike a lot of underwater photographers I've seen previously, she is actually in the water and she's quite close to her subjects. And so you can really tell that underwater perspective that a lot of us have as lifeguards and swim instructors is quite a bit different from a photographer who's standing on the pool deck. So really, really excited to introduce her in just a moment. So I see Leslie's here from Cold Lake as well. I know we have some people from Toronto. I see Winnipeg. Some people are lurking. Sarah's put her Instagram in the chat box, which is wonderful. So let me go ahead and I'm going to start my introduction and then we'll let her get started, respecting you guys being here on time. So thank you so much, everyone who is here today. I'm going to introduce our speaker from the show notes page. So this morning, our session is going to be with Sarah Teveldal. She is an award-winning underwater photographer who specializes in working with aquatic athletes and swim schools. She also offers private underwater sessions in her studio pool for maternity, kids, pets, fashion, and more. A love for travel and community has led her to hold international mermaid retreats and underwater workshops, connecting artists on both sides of the camera. She resides in Austin, Texas with her partner, Matt. Connect with Sarah through her website. She's got all the social media, so Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, those are all linked on the show notes. We also might have appearances today from Matt Seabaugh. Matt is Sarah's partner in business and life. He is a software engineering leader who is driven by innovation and helping others. With a huge passion for scuba diving, the arts, and all things technical, he is undeniably Sarah's perfect match and biggest supporter. And you can connect with him on LinkedIn, also in the show notes. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our presenter, Sarah, to come on and we'll get this session started.
All right, can everybody hear me? Awesome.
Wonderful. So as always, sorry, I was going to say, as always, I'm going to go off screen. They're going to present. We are recording this session. I'll grab any questions from the chat box as we go along. And big welcome to Sarah and Matt.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we met on Instagram. And thank you to everyone who's joining us on this presentation today. We're really excited to be here.
Absolutely.
So whenever people find out that I'm an underwater photographer, they always ask me, how did you get into this? So I'm just going to start with a little backstory about how I got into photography. So I grew up in South Dakota in a really tiny town, completely landlocked, like the furthest away from any coast. And probably like Katie, had about 3 to 4 months out of the year that we actually were able to enjoy the lakes and pools. I ended up going to school in Fargo, North Dakota. Well, actually Moorhead, Minnesota, but it's about the same city, for graphic design. And yes, it's kind of like the movie. It's cold and we do sound like that. So I went there for graphic design for 4 years. And when I was done with that, I was ready to get out and travel. And so I picked probably the furthest place away that I could go, and I ended up in New Zealand.
Sorry, friends, we're not screen sharing yet, and I think you have a slide for Fargo.
Oh, I do, yes. Okay, I forgot that part. Let's go back.
All good, we can cut this out.
Okay. Okay, anyway, so I ended up in New Zealand, which was, I was there for a 1 year, on a 1 year work visa, and my intention was just to travel around and enjoy being in a different country. And so I worked at an Irish pub, pouring pints all day, and traveled it around when I could. I climbed glaciers, I bungee jumped, I saw all the beautiful sights.
She chased boys.
I did not. I met lots of people from all over the world, and actually I met one person that did end up changing my life, and that person was Sarah Lee, and she was from the UK. We became really good friends, and I actually ended up working alongside her a little bit. I did a little bit of graphic design work for my roommate, and she was his full-time assistant and edited his wedding photos. But she also ran a side business taking photos underwater at swim schools. And this was so fascinating to me. I had never even heard of underwater photography before. And so when I joined her at one of her swim school shoots, I was blown away that you could put a baby underwater and it would open its eyes and smile. And she was getting these amazing pictures. And so I just love that. And I started thinking, wow, like what else could you shoot underwater? And she was showing me images from like fashion shoots and all different things. And it just really stuck with me. So, but moving on, there's more to the story. I ended up in Australia, and my intention was to be there for a year, but this was back in 2008 when the recession hit, and I couldn't really afford to be there anymore. So instead of flying back to the cold, wintry Fargo, because it was February, I called up a friend who had moved to Austin, Texas, and she was my old roommate from college. And she said, well, you can join me down here. And so literally a week later, I flew in, and that began my life in Austin. And the first job I took, I was working at a country club. And there were days that were really slow, and a couple months in, I found myself sitting there one day, kind of pondering, like, what am I going to do with my life? Do I want to keep traveling, or should I go study abroad, go back to school? I thought about getting a full-time job in graphic design, but I really didn't want to go from that flexible restaurant working industry to sitting at a desk job 9 to 5. I really wanted to be able to apply my creativity in a different way. And then it came to me, and I remembered Sarah and her underwater photography. And so I thought, I wonder if this is something I can make work in Austin. And from there, I went home immediately and just started doing market research for like the next month. I was like, how can I turn underwater photography into a business here? And what I learned is, like, Austin is full of pools. There's so many swim schools here. There's so many swim teams. Lots of people have pools here, so many pools. And it seemed like there was a lot of opportunity. And then Austin is also a very, if you know anything about Austin, it's very supportive of entrepreneurs, and it's a very creative community. So I thought, okay, I could probably do this. And then timing-wise was really interesting. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away during this time, but he left me a chunk of money that was just enough money to go out and buy everything that I needed to buy to go into business. So I was able to buy my whole setup, which, do you want to show them what that looks like? So this is my underwater housing. It's actually my first one. I have another one I just updated a couple of years ago, but I actually left it at my studio. I forgot to bring it for this.
And you can see what's really interesting about this is that these CNC housings, these are pretty high end. They're made of aluminum, so they're CNC'd out of, and CNC and CNC are two different things. CNC is in the ocean, is the brand, and CNC is in a machine that can carve out of aluminum, but it's basically carved out of one piece of aluminum. It's designed specifically for this camera and this body.
Oh, I think you got it down.
Oh, can you see it? There we go.
There we go.
And it's designed to fit this camera and this camera only. So all the little buttons, all the little levers and triggers that are in there are designed for this. So you have it for one camera and you can't swap it out. But the only thing you can change is lenses on it.
Yeah, so it's very specific to that camera. Very heavy duty, very expensive. It was a lot of money to drop on this idea that I had, but I just dove in, like there was no looking back. I was gonna make this work. And so as you can see on my next slide, I kind of became obsessed and I was like, what are all the things that I can shoot underwater? And I started with swim schools. So creating a photo day for swim schools, which I'll talk more about later. Same thing with swim teams, creating an opportunity for individuals to have their photos taken. Portrait sessions, so one-on-one work, and this is kind of where I was able to get really creative and experiment with different props underwater and fabrics. I love to use fabrics and do all types of portrait sessions like engagements and maternity, like you see in the picture. Maternity is actually probably the most common. And then I developed an underwater photo booth, just like an above water photo booth, but underwater with props. And so it's great for pool parties of any size. Got into mermaids, of course. I met a girl here who ran a mermaid company. And so we ended up doing retreats and mermaid makeovers and mermaid experiences. And underwater dogs. Sarah Teveldal made underwater dogs really famous, probably about around the same time. I remember his book coming out and the calendar. So we'll move on. And basically, I just kind of became obsessed and wanted to photograph anything and everything underwater. So this slide is just showing some of the crazier things I've done. The first one being an underwater mermaid tea party. And for this one, I collaborated with two other businesses in town, the Mermaid Company, Sarah Teveldal, and then a tea party company that puts on tea parties for big events. And that was really cool. It was a fun,
It was a
full day setup that Matt helped with, and we were in scuba gear trying to figure out how to sync all this stuff. So
it was a big setup. We actually hung that chandelier from a diving board, which was kind of fun. And it was a 12-foot, 15-foot pool. Mm-hmm. So the girls were really tough that day. It was cold. They were swimming down there, but they did a good job.
Yeah, it was fun. I worked with like a body painter underwater. That's on the right side, and so that was very experimental too, figuring out like what paints are going to work and, you know, using extensions in her hair. And the bottom left was working with this duo that little bands and putting their instruments underwater. And then on the bottom right, this is actually a senior photo session. And this kid came to me, he's like, I just want to like sit on a chair underwater with a plant behind me. And I was like, okay, like whatever you want, let's make it happen. And I was like a little nervous going into this one, trying to figure out like, okay, how do we make this look really cool? But it actually turned out really neat, and he was really happy with the photos. So, so yeah, I love working with different props and kind of seeing what's possible underwater. Okay, where are we at here? So, I just kind of want to talk about like how fun pools are And then when I think of a pool, I just think of the word fun, and there's always so much happening in and around pools. When I think back to when I was a kid, I would get so excited to go there, and kids are having fun playing games, and people are working out or training for events. So my point is that there's so many great photo opportunities in and around pools. So if you're not taking advantage of that every single day, I just think there's so much opportunity every day that you can be capturing all the fun that's going on in and around your pools, which in turn turns into great content that's very marketable. And we'll talk more about do-it-yourself applications, and I'll get into hiring photographers and what that looks like later. But I'll talk a little bit more now about my services. And while I'm talking about this, I kind of want you to start thinking about how photography adds value to your business, or how it could.
Yeah, one of the things you can add with that is if you think about today's online presence and all the things that are happening there, there's so much you can get quality-wise out of that, and a lot of that is going to be associated with your brand, especially if you guys have private brands you're trying to promote and push out. So just having really good quality photos is really something that can earn trust of your clients, just seeing you online, seeing that presence, seeing the engagement.
Reminding them about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And again, we'll talk more about this later, but some of the things that I've done to help other businesses create content, one of them is the photo booth. So like I mentioned, just like above water, the underwater photo booths are the same. We have all these fun props. A lot of them I just got off of Amazon, or Party City's really great for that. I don't put a lot of money into these props because they end up kind of getting destroyed after a while. So,
or stolen. They just disappear somehow. But
it's really easy to, you can go out and spend $100 and get a really nice set of props that are going to last you, a little while. You swap out new ones here and there. But for this underwater photo booth service, we kind of ended up building a backdrop out of PVC pipe and just a blue cloth. This isn't something, if you wanted to do this, you wouldn't necessarily need that. But photo booths are great. Everybody loves a photo booth at a party. So, if you can't do an underwater photo booth, do an above water photo booth. But it's a great add-on to any pool party, whether it's above water or underwater. You're going to end up with a ton of images that your families are going to then be excited about, and they'll share them, and that's free marketing content for you guys.
Yeah, there's just a ton of options too with today's, and we'll get into this later, with today's cameras and phones and other things. If you can just dip a few inches below the water, like you see in the smile photo right there, any kind of prop, any kind of thing can just be done easily and still be a whole lot of fun for everybody. It's great for the end of the year party or the kickoff party or any of that kind of stuff. And like you said, even on the side of the pool or in the shallow end of the pool, even if you can't go under, above is fun. It just gets people engaged. It gets them in the pool. It gets you content. Again, one of the things we're going to be talking about here is there's professional content for advertising, all kinds of things like that. But there's also content that you want to post out there daily to keep that online presence moving. You want that refresh of content. So what that's going to do for you is get you going. Sorry, go ahead. There you go. So one of the great things here too is that you can set up the backup setup right there. You can see it's also set up in one lane. So we're not using the whole pool. We're not kicking everybody out. We're not making a big production out of it. It's just a lot of fun. And depending on what kind of shots you want, whether you have a background or not, you can get some just amazing stuff. And family photos are fun, and everybody gets to look.
I always like to take photos above water too when I go to these events. In this case, I took a lot of video too and created a highlight reel for them.
That was a good boomerang. That kind of stuff's a whole lot of fun too.
A lot of stuff is such a good shot All right, I just kind of fast forwarded through that, so it's getting a little long, but you get the point. Oh, there we go. Mermaids. Mermaids are so popular. I started working with Cyrenalia, a mermaid company here in Austin, and they offer mermaid performers for parties, whether they're kids parties or like corporate parties. They have a girl or a guy that'll show up in a mermaid tail, and they actually make silicone, medical grade silicone mermaid tails, which are really cool. So I met them many years ago, and we decided we should do mermaid retreats. So we ended up doing international mermaid retreats in Belize, and had girls come from, and guys, again, there's definitely mermen out there, that flew in, and we got to spend a week hanging out, let them do their mermaid thing. We took photos in the ocean and photos above water, and it was just a really cool opportunity for anybody that loves to mermaid. You'll see on the screen a couple. We also offered mermaid makeovers. So that couple is actually celebrating their 1-year wedding anniversary, which is super cute. And then we do mermaid parties as well, where photography is an add-on to their mermaid performers. So I'll show you, I'll cue up this video real quick.
One of the interesting things too that you can see here is that I think she's swimming in a fin fun tail, which is on the cheaper end and on the easier end to get a hold of. And then you'll see, you're talking about the medical grade silicone tails. Those are much more high end, but it depends on what your goal is and what you're going for. So there's a lot of different options, and we'll cover these.
This package included in either just capturing like behind the scenes that's just laying around. Each of the girls had the opportunity to take their picture with the mermaid and have their own mermaid photo taken. So again, it's a great thing to remember this fun birthday event. And then Cyrenalia also has wonderful photos to share for their business too. Yeah, the pool was just littered with these that day. We just loved it. Can you fast forward to the end? Just show this my own photos. Moving on, more mermaid stuff. Aqua Mermaid is out of Canada. Marielle, a gal, started it up there, and it's a franchise. So recently, 2 years ago, someone bought one of the franchises down here in Austin, and Marielle came down and introduced us to each other. And now we partner to have photography as an add-on to their packages. So they do mermaid lessons. They teach kids and adults how to swim in the tails. They offer their own tails that they have their own line of tails that they bring along, and you can purchase them as well. And they also do mermaid parties. So we've had a lot of fun doing that. Kids of all ages and adults too, as you can see on the bottom right. That was a recent 50th birthday party. That was so much fun. I think that mermaiding, because it's so popular and there's so many options for tails and programs, it could be something that you could consider adding on to your programs. If you want to do that, there's lots of options for tails. So just a couple of my favorite would be Fin Fun Mermaid tails. And I worked with them kind of about 8-9 years ago when they first got started, and actually photographed some of their tails. But they've been around probably the longest, and they're maybe the most budget friendly, and they have tons of accessories and options for colors. Aqua Mermaid, again, like I said, they sell their own tails. I think they have 5 different colors. I really like that they have a zipper on the side, so it's easy to get that monofin in and out. And I think they're a little more durable. And then Mertailor offers silicone tails and the fabric tails. They have a lot of options as well. But, you know, if you want to add a mermaid performer option to your parties or events, that's something, you know, you might want to make that investment into, like a really cool looking tail for them. So just in summary, I'm suggesting 3 ways that you can introduce mermaiding to your businesses. You can collaborate with a local mermaid company. You could create your own program. Waterloo here in town, a swim facility that I've worked with, created like mermaid workout programs that are really cool. And then they also offer tail rentals. So that could be a revenue stream for you as well, is to have these tails on site that people can use.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is almost all of them are built around the monofin concept. And in doing so, you know, other than making sure the swimmers can actually swim in the tail and maybe having someone for younger swimmers in the pool, it's a whole lot of fun, and you can literally swim in those. We had girls in Belize that were swimming down 15 feet in the ocean in front of the coral to get the shots that we wanted to get. And they were able to do it because those fins can really push hard. So it's kind of fun once they learn to swim in them and not bend the knees so much. And as time goes on, they'll get better and the photos will look more natural.
Yeah, there's obviously a conversation to be had about like the safety aspect of these. So that's something you want to consider, and that's maybe a different conversation to have. But there's, you know, they're so popular, it does make sense to at least, you know, give instruction on it if you are going to be offering something like that. So, okay. So moving on to nonprofits. I love partnering with other businesses, obviously, but nonprofits as well. There's a lot of opportunity for cross promotion when you work with another business or a nonprofit. So you might think, like, what nonprofits in your community would be relevant to what you do, or how can you create an event that would be mutually beneficial to you both? That's very like photo worthy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this can be cross-brand promotion, but it can also be just that fact that, you know, people love dogs, and sometimes they want pictures of their dogs more than they want pictures of their children randomly. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's a really big push sometimes. And it's just a great cause. And so by blending the two together, you're going to get more brand recognition out there, and just have that connection. You're
promoting not only to your followers, but also their followers as well. So, so like Matt said, brand recognition. In this case, I worked with Awesome Pets Alive over a couple of instances, and they promoted it to, they obviously have a much larger following than I do. And so that was good business exposure for myself. And we got tons of amazing photos that, you know, they're going to share and people are going to reshare. And it's just really fun content. And maybe doing a dog event isn't for you, but you could consider something that is maybe a little more doable would be like a holiday event. So I've also worked with Collins Hope, which is a local drowning prevention awareness nonprofit here in Austin. And we've done several events where we offer Swim with Santa photos. And we'll do them at different facilities The photos that you're seeing here were done at Schlitterbahn, which is a really big water park here in Texas. And so that got promoted on a local news station. It brought in people, different people that hadn't been in some of these facilities before. So the facilities got exposure and people use them for their Christmas cards. So it was great exposure for everybody that was involved.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things too is Colin Hope's they have a big push for drain safety and drain covers. I'm sure everybody on here is familiar with the safety issues around that and making sure everyone's okay. And so part of drowning prevention for them is that as well. So, you know, when we talk about getting gear and talk about doing things and spending money to maybe get something to take high quality photos in the water, you can also use that as a kind of a cross promotion or a cross concept of being able to take photos of your drains and make sure that from a liability and safety perspective that you're there. And then again, you can also use that as a reason to cross promote with someone who also supports drain safety.
That's right. So as I mentioned before, I developed programs to work with the swim teams and swim schools. They're both kind of similar in that when I take photos for the swim teams and swim schools, the swim team and the school are able to use the photos for their promotion purposes as well. So when I work with a swim team, it's free to the team to do a photo day, but parents will sign up for individual sessions. And it's affordable for parents too. I'm doing just quick little 5-minute sessions. It starts at $65. And in that 5 minutes, I'm able to capture a ton of photos, and they end up getting a gallery of around 10 photos from which they can order from. So we're able to capture these really cool photos that is from a perspective that people don't normally get to see. So the content there is really great. It's very shareable, and it kind of elevates them and sets them apart from different teams. I work with, year after year with a lot of swim schools down here, and they end up using them for their websites. They share them on social media. Parents love them. So it ends up being a win-win for everybody. It's really great.
Yeah, the other thing is there's a lot of kids out there that want to be collegiate swimmers or maybe even Olympic swimmers at some point. And so getting the information, having that profile out there and high quality content to just share what they can do, see their strokes, and sometimes it's also an educational tool so they can see how their strokes are moving and how things are moving forward. So this is a great example, I think, of a really good sports swimmer.
Yeah. This is just a short video of one high schooler who is applying to, I think, almost 20 colleges, and so he's looking to get recruited. And so this is his submission for a recruitment website that just kind of shows off his various strokes from above the water and underwater. So there again, it's just a really good tool for the swimmers. I've worked with water polo teams and synchronized swim teams too. So I love the aquatic community. There's so much potential there. We can move on to the next slide. Perfect. So that brings us to swim schools. Again, similar to working with swim teams, we'll pick a day to run a photo day where I'm doing little back-to-back mini sessions. It's free to the swim schools. The parents are the ones that are signing up online prior to the event for sessions. It's really easy for the swim schools to do this because we only need to operate in a little probably about a 10 by 10 foot area of the pool. So we can schedule it while they're having sessions or another event, since we don't take up a lot of real estate. All we ask of the swim school is to promote the photo day. And so we'll provide all the marketing materials for that. And then we'll show up on the day of and set up a little table out front where we'll greet the parents, send them in when their session time begins. And I always work with another swim instructor because every school is different. Everyone has a different style of teaching, different language that they use. And so I always want to make sure that kids are comfortable and it feels kind of more like a lesson and not this like a scary photo shoot thing. But we always end up with great photos, like the kids love it. And it's a really valuable thing for the swim schools because typically on a photo day, the results will be hundreds of really nice images that I'll then hand over to the swim school, as long as parents sign a photo release, which historically about 90% do or more, which is great. So if they've signed a photo release, I hand those photos over to the swim school and then they can use them for their promotional and marketing materials. So I'm bringing up Bear Paddle Swim School as an example. We work with them every year. I think they have about 11 locations now in the US. And so like we'll go up to Chicago where they have 5 schools and go to a swim school. We'll hit up 2 swim schools in a day. And they'll then use those photos for the next year. On their website, you can see, they have it on a poster, handouts, on the TV screens. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Nitro Swimming is a local company, a local swim facility here in Austin. And you can see they've used a photo on their truck, which is really cool.
So yeah, some of the other things that we do also is while we're there, if we're going to travel up there, we're going to go to multiple schools, we're going to shoot multiple kids in multiple locations. We'll do a little drone photography on top of that. But at the same time, like you saw on the truck for Nitro, there's a lot of good marketing material you can get. This is really kind of when the professional level wants to jump in. If you're going to put a banner on the side of your car, the quality has to be at a certain level. That includes editing and things that we'll go over in a little bit. But you can get a lot of bang for your buck by scheduling the right things and kind of setting up that concept to get all the materials that you need.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking a lot about underwater photography, which is still very much a niche, and you might not even have an underwater photographer in your community, and that's okay. There's so many ways you can get creative and incorporate dry photography into your programs. There's most certainly plenty of above water photographers in your area. I think the industry is pretty saturated everywhere, especially right now with the pandemic. There's a lot of them that are needing to work. So now is a really great time to start considering, hiring a photographer. Photographers can be a really great add-on to any events like we've talked about. Like if you're having an event, there's no reason you shouldn't have a photographer there. The going rate in Austin for an event photographer is around like $150 to $250 an hour. So have them there just for an hour and have them capture a ton of photos that you can then share, that the parents will then reshare, or again, you can use it as content throughout the year. It just makes for a really great photo opportunity.
And like I was saying, that's an opportunity to get also stuff that you might need for marketing materials at the same time. Use that professional that comes in to get all the things that you need. Yeah.
There's going to be tons of daily photo opportunities for you too. So it doesn't always make sense to hire a professional photographer. I think there's a lot of great opportunity to do it yourself. So we have some suggestions for if you do want to start doing more of your own photography. You don't have to get super fancy and go out and buy a $5,000 setup like I have. You can go out and get a GoPro. GoPros are very user-friendly now. They're very budget-friendly. Your phones, everybody has a phone, and the more update, like every year they just keep getting better and better, and they take really great photos. So use your phone. If you want to do some underwater stuff, I just upgraded to the iPhone 12 and I got a case for it. And it takes amazing underwater footage. I use it, I'll attach it to the top of my rig and take behind the scenes. And it looks just as good as the stuff I'm shooting on my camera. It takes 4K. I mean, they've shot like movies on phones before. So you can search Amazon if you want to look into that, or stabilizers. A lot of these things are, you know, around on the lower end, $20 to $30 for a waterproof case. Stabilizers are really great for video. So if you're going to start doing more video, you might want to think about investing in a $30 to $40 stabilizer that you can walk around with. And it's, instead of having that chicky video, you're going to have a little more control.
Yeah, there's a couple different stabilization tools that exist. There's stabilization within the device itself, the phone. There's stabilization you can do that in post and certain apps. And then lastly, there are higher end stabilizers like the one you see up here, which actually gives you more of that movie feel. It's got little motors in it that keep everything perfect and adjust to you moving. So it gives you that smooth kind of cinematic shot when you want it. And you can add that and piece that together and make some really nice videos. So between those three, those are different levels of obviously spend as well, but that's okay. You get what works for you, get something you can use and that you're comfortable with.
Okay, someone asked what waterproof case do I use? I honestly don't know, but I will look it up at the end of the presentation and send it to you. But you know what, to be honest, I might actually look into getting a different waterproof case, because it's like sometimes the buttons aren't very clickable through it. So I might look into, you know, upgrading, getting something a little bit nicer. I might have spent like $30 on it.
And be very clear that read the stats, read the specifics on it. Mm-hmm. Make sure it can go as deep as you want, or if it's set for 5 feet or 15 feet, don't push that. I'm a big scuba diver and I can ruin cameras very, very fast. So just make sure you've done the homework.
Yeah, I mean, don't go sticking your new iPhone 12 in the underwater just because it says it's waterproof. It's not. Like, it can still take in water, and I don't think insurance covers that. So you definitely want to protect whatever you're using, and it might be worth maybe, you know, spending a little bit more money in that case when you think about it in the long run and like how much use you're going to be getting out of it.
Do you want to hold some of these questions for the end? Or do you want to answer now?
Let's hit them real quick.
Okay.
Just the one about stabilization device. I really like the Osmo products. Osmo's going to be like, that is the one thing they focus on is building like really great devices. It's there's a lot of things on Amazon that are like, you know, cheaper or whatnot. And even though the technology is getting better, I think Osmo is kind of leading in that. So that's going to be a little more higher end. I did recently just get a quick little stabilizer off Amazon, and I'll look up the link to that. I do like it. I think it works really well.
Yeah, so Osmo was made by DJI, who makes drones. So the stabilization technology that's in the drone is actually in these handheld devices. And they make different grades. They make one for your phone like you see here. It's a few $100s, and then make ones that are for SLRs like this that are much more money, but they all look great.
If you are going to be taking your own photos, edit them. Like, just spend a couple minutes cropping them, increasing the brightness if you need to, maybe putting a filter on it. It's just going to just put a little more effort into making it look really nice if you're going to go ahead and post it on Instagram or Facebook. There's so many great apps out there. I'm just going to recommend one. There's so many you can look into that are great, and they have different upgrades and prices. I really like Color Story for photo editing. That one has a multitude of different filters that you can apply. I like to just stick to like 1 or 2 that are kind of in the same family, because you want consistency, especially if you're going to be constantly posting them on your social media. It looks so much nicer when you have like a really cohesive look. Beat Leap, I just started using Beat Leap and I really like it. It's not great for like, you can't get really particular with how you edit the video, but what it does is it'll cut it down and enhance it to the song that you pick. So
yeah, it's a little plug and play. Yeah, it's a little plug and play where you can give it video and it does a lot of the work for you. It's great for daily videos when you just want to throw something together really quick, or when you just need to take a good chunk of stock footage, or not stock footage, excuse me, footage that you took that's back in, that in music, and add it and put a nice little video together. It's not going to be high-end, studio grade editing by any means.
Like, for example, let's say you have an event and you want to feature like a 30-second video to post on your social media and your stories, but you have like 5 minutes here, a minute here, 20 seconds here. You select those videos and it'll take like 5 seconds from here, 5 seconds from here, 5 seconds from here, and it'll put it to the sound of the music, to the beats, hence Beat Leap. And it just looks really cool, so it's great for highlight videos. Canva and Over are really great if you need to add any sort of text, or if you want to create a graphic. They're very user-friendly. They have both a desktop and a mobile version. And then if you want to get a little more, if you want to explore it even a little bit more, you can get Photoshop and Lightroom for $10 a month. That's what I use to edit all my photos. So you might need to take some tutorials online to learn how to use it.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. You can watch a little, 10-minute video and it'll give you a really great introduction on how to use it. But yeah, especially if you're using a DSLR camera like I am, that's a really great tool for editing more high-end photos.
And for some of the questions that we haven't got to yet, we'll hit at the end of the Q&A section.
It takes about 0.05 seconds for users to form an opinion about your website that determines whether they like your site or not, and whether they'll stay or leave. So photos, I just can't emphasize it enough, are so important to your business. You want them to land on your website or your Instagram page or whatever, and know immediately that they want to know, like, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? And you want to give them that really great first impression.
Everyone has short attention span these days, and so whether it's your website's bounce rate or people going to the next Instagram feed or whatever it is, all of those things happen really fast, and people make a decision based on what they see, not what they read. So the quality and that whole trust and comfort level we talked about around the brand is a big thing for online presence.
People actually only remember about 10% of information 3 days after hearing it. On average, adding a picture can improve that recall to 65%. Nearly 2/3 of people say they're visual learners. I'm definitely one of them. And consumers are significantly more likely to think favorably of ads that emphasize photography over ads that emphasize text. So again, it's so important to have great photos. Bringing me to my next point, say no to stock photos. And I know Katie talked about this a little bit in some of her intros. Apparently up in Canada, a lot of people are using stock photos on their websites. We see it a lot in the US too, obviously, but I appreciate that she brought that to my attention, because it's so true. I think stock photos, they look posed. Like when you see a stock photo, you know it's a stock photo, which is then gonna reduce trust in your brand and your products. You definitely wanna be using images that represent you and represent your business and what you do. And what better way to do that than to actually have photos of, the people that are at your business and using your facilities. So why professional photos? Simply put, professional photos are more professional. It's going to add to the authenticity of your brand. You want to be dedicated to the quality of what you're offering. So if you're skimping on anything in your business, including photography, what else are you skimping on?
That's that trust factor.
Sometimes you're driving down the road and you see a business who's like painted their own sign and didn't like spend a few $100s more to get that professional looking sign. I think, oh, well, what's on the inside? Like it's gonna be the same quality. So I don't want to walk into a business like that.
Yeah, there's, like we talked about earlier, there's the time and the place and what you need. So your daily photos, your online presence as far as social media is concerned, yeah, take those yourself. Keep that interaction, fresh content coming. But when it comes to putting something on the side of a truck or making a sign or anything that you really need is going to have your branding, your facility, all of those things involved, you want that to be representative of what someone's going to walk into at your business and how much you care. Because everyone knows that you care about your business, but how do you explain it to everybody else? And I think showing your business and showing your branding is a good way to do that.
Mm-hmm. And if you've read all the other points on the slide here, I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. So we'll move on to, I want to kind of talk about if you do want to hire a photographer, how to choose the right one. Any good photographer is obviously going to have an online portfolio, so you're going to want to start there. Does their portfolio, does it show quality? Does their style match your branding? You might want to consider building a relationship. Once you do find someone, building a relationship with them, and that way you can hire them time after time and they can really get to know your business and your needs. This might also be more cost effective if they can offer you packages, or knowing that you're going to come back and hire them, be able to give you like a better ongoing price. If you aren't quite sure where to start with professional photography, or like you don't know how to define your needs, ask them. A good photographer is going to find those opportunities for you of the things that you should be capturing in images and video.
Yeah, it's worth having a great discussion with them about, hey, especially if you have to bring up a photographer from someplace else, if you help them get here, if you help them do this and you work out a package, you can not only have photos of your clients, or maybe a photo a day in or around the pool, but also you can get that marketing content. So by combining multiple things together and really working on how that can work for you, you can actually get a lot of better bang for your buck when it comes to that as well.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about the deliverables, meaning what am I really getting at the end of it? Is it a number of photos, or is it certain coverage of something? You just want to make sure you have that conversation, and then it's in a contract too, that like, this is, I know exactly what I'm getting at the end. And it doesn't, I also want to emphasize, like, quantity doesn't equate to value necessarily. Like, you don't need to go in and get hundreds and hundreds of photos. You might need just 5 really good photos. So you want to define what is the goal and make sure that whatever they're going to provide for you at the end fits that goal. A good photographer is going to have their own insurance. They're going to be able to help with photo releases and make sure you're covered there. You might want to consider, if you can't find the right photographer in your community, consider maybe it doesn't cost that much more to hire the right person and, fly them in, or, pay for their travel costs to drive over a couple hours.
Yeah, one quick thing I want to hit with photo releases, it's with the internet out there and people's children and things, you want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what you're doing. Obviously, if you're scheduling a shoot, it's a little different than if you just have your clients generally, and make sure that gets handled.
Why does photography cost so much? Time. It's not just the time on site. We spend most of our time at our desks doing all sorts of things. Editing, which I'll show you a cool edit slide next, but gear is very expensive. You have to upgrade it over time, keep up with that. Obviously, you're paying for their skills and what they've learned over the years, their experience. You're paying for a return on your investment. So you want to consider how long you're going to be able to use these photos and what is that value to you and your business. So don't shortchange yourself on that. And some photographers have assistants that either help them, on site or for editing and stuff. So there's a lot of costs that go into like behind the scenes of running a photography business.
And experience, right? You want that experience of someone who knows how to set the lighting right, who knows how to use the lighting that exists, who knows how to use your pool correctly, all of those things. There we go.
Okay, yeah. Katie just queued up just a quick little video, a really easy edit from a swim school shoot that just kind of shows a raw photo straight out of camera to, oh, is that the slow version? I think I gave you the wrong link. Hey, Katie, can I play it on my end?
Because it's a time lapse over here.
Yeah, that would be
want to avoid your death.
Here we go, this is better. But you can see what goes into editing a photo. You're changing the colors, you're taking out, in my case, I take out like distracting pool borders and nose bubbles, adding some color in, sharpening, just making that photo look really, really good so it's gonna pop either, on your website or when you print it out.
Yeah, and again, shooting in RAW allows us to do a lot of this, which is where the professional level of things changes from just shooting on your phone. You have so much more data to use inside of Lightroom in this case that you can make a ton more changes without blowing out the photo or causing any kind of distortion.
There's just one more example, a before and after of, especially with underwater photography, there's a lot of editing that goes on behind the scenes. So again, I took out the pool border, made her hair a little fuller, worked with the fabrics. I'm showing you this to kind of show you like what's possible in editing and what really goes into it. Same with above water photos too. Like obviously it's a lot for underwater, but a good commercial photographer is going to spend a lot of time making sure that those photos look perfect for whatever uses you need them for. Thanks, Julia. Go ahead to the next one. And I'm just going to finish by talking about how we worked with Waterloo Swimming here in Austin to provide them with content that covered all aspects of their swim facility. Because they do swim lessons, swim teams, they rent out their pool for different services. And when they came to us to generate a bunch of photos for them for the year, we ended up sitting down first just to have that meeting to define, what their needs are, what do they need coverage of. And then they helped organize their families to be models for this shoot. So we were able to coordinate and set aside time over the course of 2 days to capture all the content that we needed. But we were able to do it really efficiently where to capture their swim teams and their coaches coaching, I just popped in for an hour and got shots of them actually like during their training, underwater, above water. And then we did do like a scheduled coordinated mock shoot for their like little swim classes. And we did this on a Sunday when they're typically closed, so that was convenient for them, but we could have easily done it while other stuff was going on. So we did a little mock class and had, some models come, which were, families that go there. So that, that little shoot took about an hour, and then we moved on to the big kids where they had, I think, about 20 kids show up, and we did this mock class for the big kids. They had the Mermaid program, which I mentioned. So we spent a little time getting shots above and underwater of the mermaids. We did headshots of the owner and some of the leadership staff. We took a bunch of facility shots, got the drone out, flew it inside, went outside, got the aerial shots of the building, you know, took a lot of stock shots of like their products and stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the great things about taking photos of the staff and even some of the kids wearing their logo and stuff is not only that you have their branding involved,
Right.
but then they can use it on their site to represent their coaches better instead of just some random photo. So it's in the facility, it's them doing what they love.
I won't read this list, but I'm just kind of showing you like everything that we were able to cover in just this condensed shot list. And again, it was 2 days and I was only there like 2 hours the first day and probably 4 hours the next day to capture everything that they needed. It resulted in, I think, about 400 photos, which is a lot. Like that's quite a lot. And maybe even over delivered, but I just couldn't help it. Like there were so many great shots. So they have a really nice selection now that they can use for years to come. I think these will, you know, I can pop in and maybe do some updated photos if they switch out like their merchandise or if they add a program or anything, that would be really easy. But it was really cost effective and efficient on our time.
Yeah, and if your branding doesn't change, the only stock photos you probably should use are the ones you already had taken previous years ago, and then you can just focus on new coaches or new staff, new clients, whatever.
Yeah. I want to also touch on just going back to like getting headshots. I think it's really important to at least have your leadership professionally photographed on your website. These are the people that your clients are putting their trust in. They're handing their kids over to you. So you really want to represent. You don't want to just have a bunch of like mix mash photos or pixelated or something you just grabbed against the wall with your phone. Like put a little effort into it. I'll go back to that shot. You know, tell a story through these photos or do some fun shots. Show how much fun you're having. There's so much you could do to really like to best represent your business. You're going to be spending money on ads, or if you're going to be spending money on ads, you want to make sure that you have a photo that's going to make the most out of that ad, and you're going to get your money's worth. And that's it. That's all I have today. And we just want to thank you again for joining us. I do have a link I'm going to share with you because I'd love to, if anyone has like specific questions for me that we can't answer in the Q&A here, I'd be happy to take 20-minute complimentary phone calls to talk about anything that you might want to talk about for your business. So whether it's do-it-yourself tools or just needing consulting on where you can maybe improve like visuals in your business, or even if you want to talk about hiring us to come visit your swim school and you know, helping you out with your needs. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Sarah and Matt. I think there's so many ideas I know I had as you were talking. We'll leave your contact info up for another moment on the screen. But I just want to get everyone thinking, if at your aquatic facility, whether you're municipal or for-profit, I think there's a tendency to really forget about the advertising. And I really appreciated that you highlighted that throughout this session. There's so many places that we put photos. We put them on Facebook, on Instagram, on Google My Business, on our website, on literature, on program guides, in our facility, on, you know, staff boards. And the one nice thing I really love about your condensed photo list, like what are all the shots we need to get when the photographer's here? You can take care of all of that in one go, and it can become an annual or a semi-annual or even a biannual if your budget is tight. And that's almost like a reminder for me. Like if I had that on my calendar, it would remind me to update all of those places because maybe I get busy and I don't update my photos, right? How many pools have we been to where we see photos from pre-renovation? You know, they're 6 or 7 years old, or, they're just not representative or accurate. I think that's a big problem with our industry.
Absolutely. I know that I'm a very visual shopper. So when I'm looking to go to any business, whether it's a restaurant or a gym, the first thing I'll do is I'll Google it, restaurants in Austin. And I see what I like. The first thing I'm going to come up on is their Google photos.
Yes.
And that right there is like your first impression. I'm not even on their website yet. Like, there are so many little places that people are going to discover you now. And I know it seems daunting and a lot to keep up with, but that's where like actually doing the work to just like let someone else take care of it. I'm going to hire someone who knows what they're doing. They're going to get all these great shots. And like, so for a restaurant, we're going to have all our like awesome dishes, our highlight dishes right on Google there. And people aren't going to see a bunch of like random dark shots. I'm going to be like, I want to eat that. I'm going there for dinner tonight. It blows my mind. Like, most businesses do not do this.
And I hear proof is in the pudding. She looks at Google and goes, I don't know what that is, but it looks good. Let's go there.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Well, and to your point, from both the restaurant and the swimming pool perspective, a lot of people are tagging these businesses and their customer photos are becoming the default for these businesses, which doesn't always reflect well. And so I know the first pool I worked at in Lac La Biche as a manager, probably 7 or 8 years ago, it took me maybe half an hour to figure out what a Google My Business listing was and who to call and get it claimed. But then it just becomes a 5-minute, throw in some photos every quarter. And you would be amazed the number, because it tells you the stats. People click on photos and then it reminds you to update photos. And that's really, like you said, that online presence before people even click on your hyperlinked website. They may be going on, well, this business has photos or this business doesn't. And so many pools in Canada, I can't speak to the US, but so many pools in Canada, multi-million-dollar facilities, and they don't spend half an hour. Even uploading the dreaded stock photo would be something. There's literally nothing, and you have no concept of what you're walking into. Or even our lifeguards. How many of us have lifeguards? We've been on deck when a customer comes out of the change room and they say, oh, you don't have a hot tub, or oh, you don't have play equipment. Well, no, that's in our program guide, but there's no photos to represent that on the internet where people are going to look.
People don't like to read. We are constantly like just bombarded with content. And I don't really even read much anymore. I'll scan, but like a photo should tell me what's going on. Videos now are like even outdoing photos when it comes to ads and stuff, and how long people are staying engaged, because we want that information faster.
No, I completely agree. I want to chat about props and fabrics a little bit, and then we'll try and answer the indoor lighting question. So let's say we're doing, you come to my pool, we're doing some lessons, we're doing maybe some photos of staff training to show how much time we invest in our staff safety and competency. Are there certain things that you do or don't do? Like, do people just wear the bathing suits that they own, or do they buy new bathing suits? What do you find works in and around water that way?
I might have misheard you. Are you talking about with private sessions that I do one-on-one, or when I work with a swim team?
Let's say you're doing the whole facility, like you mentioned with Waterloo. Right. So a mix of lessons, photos of staff, and you were saying headshots, but I'm thinking like even an action shot. If I'm teaching preschool lessons, maybe you're photographing me from the deck, showing me engaged with the client.
Right.
Is there certain colors that are better than others, or you just work with whatever people wear?
Great question. I think when you're able to like plan that ahead of time, you definitely want to wear, I would assume most facilities have shirts that show their logo or their branding. That's number one, wear something like that, or wear a color that fits your branding as well. So I think obviously when you're working around blue as the color, if you're going to wear blue, you're going to blend in. If you want to wear a complementary color, the warmer tones like oranges and reds look great to like really stand out and get colorful. So if you have those options to like play with colors. You would probably want to coordinate ahead of time. That's a really good question, because I don't think we did that at Waterloo. We didn't really talk about like what the models were going to wear. But that would be a good conversation to have, to make sure that they don't show up and they're wearing, you know, someone else's logo on their shirt, or a swimsuit that like isn't appropriate, or maybe it's a kid in, here's a good one. When I'm sending a prep email for the swim school and the swim team shoots, when I work with the swim schools, I recommend that parents don't put their kids in neon. When I'm shooting with flashes, it'll highlight the flash and it can like add that color to their skin tone. So neon's something to avoid.
Also, just don't forget about it depends on obviously the size and type of business, but all the swag, swim caps.
Yeah.
If you're doing floaties, there's so many other things. A lot of times there's actual full swimsuits. So, you know, any kind of branding you can push into that photography is great, because even if they don't catch something as far as titles are concerned, they might see that branding on a kid and go, oh, okay, I recognize that. That's Nitro, or that's this, or that's that.
Yeah.
Well, and I liked in the first video we showed, which is also linked on the show notes, just kind of the behind the scenes of the photo shoot. I saw a big towel with, you know, diving toys and goggles and swim caps. And to your point, I mean, so many pools, they have what we call the L&F boutique, the lost and found, and just swapping out goggles on the same person might look different, or having, you know, different kickboards or pull boys, or, you know, small toys, and just to provide variety, you know, when you're taking the same person rather 20 or 30 times, switching out some equipment in addition to the person will give more variety depending on what people plan. Because you never know, you might need a photo 6 months from now for something that you didn't intentionally photograph, but maybe there's something that's close enough that would work for the purposes that you're trying to advertise.
Right. That's a good point.
What about indoor pools? Unfortunately, a lot of our pools in Canada are indoors. What kinds of success have you had with indoor photography of pools?
Yeah, that gets tough. I will admit that I've had like some tough lighting situations when it comes to indoor pools. I don't prefer, you know, so I feel the pain that some people are expressing. On the professional side, I'm able to use lighting. So whether I'm lighting it from above water and I have lights on stands, actually just recently invested in some really nice new LED lights that can change colors, and they have a really large output. They can go above water and underwater. I also have flashes. You didn't see them on the rig that I showed you before, but I have strobes that attach to my rig, so I'll shoot with those in indoor pools as needed. I obviously prefer to shoot outdoors, to where you have the bright sun and it's just a different effect. But you can definitely get great photos indoors. If you're shooting, you know, just on your phone or with a GoPro, you might want to consider shooting at the right time of day. So I'm guessing most of them have windows, or I would hope so. And if you do, you know, consider, when am I getting the most light? When is the most sunlight coming in to get the shots that you want?
And what part of the pool too, because sometimes depending upon the design of the building, that light's going to be in a different spot.
Mm-hmm. Outside of like suggesting going and buying lights like I did, I would just say make sure it's as, you know, you have all the lights on as much as possible, and maybe consider the tools you're using. So, you know, does this phone take a better shot, or do I need to go borrow the staff member's phone to quick grab the right shot that I need, and then, you know, share it that way instead. So just using what you have and doing the best that you can. You can also do a lot in post. So you might take a shot and it looks grainy or dark. You might be able to edit it in and out afterwards.
And we've used everything from construction lights to, I don't know, we've used some weird stuff over the years just to try to get lighting going. So you can try those things. Obviously, safety is a concern there from GFC hyperglyphs, but outside of that, we've just used stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to say like go put a construction lane right next to the pool, but I mean, use common sense. So
Well, and I think, like you said, when you're hiring that photographer, the meet and greet or discussions with them is bringing them to the pool and saying, can you light this? Do you have the
Yes.
capacity? Because I do know in my
That's
community
really
with the photographers that I know, some only do natural lighting, right? They own one light, whereas others have a whole studio of lights that they would be prepared to truck over to a facility, but they still might say, the ceiling is too high, or there's not a corner that we can light well enough without me renting equipment. This would be the associated
right.
cost, or we're not set up for a commercial shoot. We mostly do family portraits. And every pool is different. So in Canada, many of our pools, they might have windows, they might have LED lights, they might have older incandescent lights. The shallow end might be better lit than the deep end. So it's really going to be considering either what photos do we want, can we afford to take, or do we, especially for a municipality with multiple facilities, do we ship all the staff to the best lit, newest facility to get the portraits and the action shots, and then we defer our facility photos until summer when there's longer, better light, or what does that look like?
Right. Yeah, good points. I want to touch on too quick. It reminded me that when you said, maybe this photographer only does family photos. If you do reach out to someone like that who mostly specializes in like portrait photography or has, their own niche, just be prepared that the pricing for like a portrait session versus the pricing for commercial photography is much different. And most commercial photographers are not going to advertise that price up front. Like, oh, you can't you're not gonna be able to like go on someone's website and see, I can hire them for this much money to come in and shoot my swim school. It's gonna be negotiated based on what are the deliverables, like we talked about before, and which also includes licensing. How long are you gonna be using those photos? That can get a little bit like complicated. So you wanna be prepared to have those conversations about what kind of licensing is included in, if I do hire you, how can I use these photos? How long can I use these photos? Where can I use these photos? It's a little bit more complicated than just hiring like a portrait photographer.
But also you talked about finding a photographer. Let's say you go online, you find somebody you really, really like their style, but for whatever reason it's not a good fit. Ask them for a referral. Because they probably know other photographers who might be a good fit for you and have a similar style, and you'll get what you want.
Yeah, no, and I think there's so many points that are valid from what you said that, yeah, commercial is a different business from perhaps an individual who as a hobby or as a side business, they happen to take photos, and it's a different level of service and perhaps a different level of product that you can expect. And so not to be scared off that maybe the minimum retainer for a photographer is $2,500 or 8 hours or whatever that looks like. I know it sounds like a lot of money to many of us in aquatics, but if you're looking at the usage of those photos, let's say you retain usage for, in perpetuity, and you can use them anywhere, and they're going in program guides. I mean, you're going to get down to dollars per photo, and it's really going to have a positive impact. And so maybe that cost seems too much up front. And so maybe you share with another pool, or you have, bring in multiple staff from multiple locations, and you start to get creative. Or you build in, as Sarah has suggested, maybe we try out a photo booth in the second half of the day to fund the photos we need for the facility, just to kind of feel out what our community would be willing to do.
Exactly.
Because I know it's, parents love buying, whether it's the photo with the Easter Bunny or with Santa or at Halloween, $60. I mean, many parents are willing to spend that. And so maybe you can book 10 or 20 families, and that gets you halfway to your cost if it's a bigger retainer.
That's a great point, because I've done that in the past too, to where I've traveled to a school and to do a photo day with them where the parents are paying. But then because I'm already there, the money's already been spent on travel costs, encouraging them to hire me to do commercial photos then as well. It's a great opportunity to save on those travel costs, or we split them. Like, it's obviously negotiated depending on the situation, but you made a good point, like sharing it with another facility, or introducing another, a goggle company or something. That could get a little complicated though, because obviously that's adding value to them. But think think about those cross-promotion opportunities and how you can share those costs with others, like you were saying.
Also remember that the time spent not at your facility. So the photographer's going to go home, do a bunch of editing. So, not asking for every possible photo they took that day it can be a good thing, because you're going to say, okay, I'm going to edit X amount. Again, back to what we talked about earlier about what's the goal and what are you going to get as a deliverable.
Well, and I would encourage everyone who works at an aquatic facility as part of a larger organization. So maybe you're part of a municipality, maybe you're part of a county, maybe you're part of a big urban area. I found this out very late in my aquatic career. But so we in aquatics, our advertising budget was, let's say, $1,000, which was not a lot to go very far, whether it was Facebook ads or things like that. I found out very late in the process that the advertising budget for the municipality was almost $100,000. So if I brought them an idea and said, hey, let's get happy residents in the pool that you can then cross promote at any time of the year for the spray park, for Mother's Day, they were game. They paid for it. But you have to make that connection that the pool budget or the rec budget may not be exactly what you want. But in advertising, in the advertising department, they're spending that kind of money, $2,500 without thinking, as long as you provide a business case, how they can also use the photos and the deliverables, as Sarah said, we're going to get 150 photos and it's going to represent our residents. So diverse people, diverse populations, people who actually live in our area that can be recognized. That's also a big draw.
Well, and again, also think about the fact that maybe if that photographer agrees to this deal, they can come out and do photos at the pool facility, but also at the facility next door that the rest of the marketing group would care about. So again, just cross-promote that as much as possible, and you're going to get that budget spent.
Yeah, or like you said, you bring the mayor, put him in a polo shirt on deck, and all of a sudden, you're not using that for every mayor's publication, but you've got some mayoral photos for variety, right? There's a lot of different budget pools you can be pulling from if you're thinking creatively. Anybody has any questions, please pop those in the chat box. We're going to start wrapping up, but a question that I had for you guys was regarding this safety. If you've ever had any safety challenges, like weaker swimmers that aren't able to do the photos, or how have you found is the best way to address just making sure everyone's safe while you're doing these things?
Great question, because safety is obviously like a #1 priority whenever we're doing shoots like this. When I work with swim teams and swim schools, obviously when I'm working with like younger kids or kids with lesser capabilities in the water, I always have a swim instructor there with me. Again, I want them to feel like, I want them to be comfortable as if they were in a swim lesson, and I want them to be able to communicate with them the way that they're used to being, the language that they use like during those programs. So that's really important to have that extra person in the water. When I'm working with swim teams and like kids that are like competing, I don't really, there's not much to worry about there. That's, they're very capable swimmers. Typically they'll still be, someone outside of the pool or on deck if anything were to happen. And when I'm working one-on-one, like doing a private session, let's say like with a maternity client, I'm always starting them off in the shallow end where they can touch. And typically we don't even need to leave that part of the area. So they'll always be able to plant their feet down and touch, especially if we're working with fabrics. Obviously that can be a concern where they can kind of get like tangled up a little bit. But I'm right there. I'm able to reach out a hand if they just need a little like push to the top. But I always encourage them to take their time, go slow. I don't push them. I give them step-by-step instruction on what to do with their hands and their feet. And I've never really had a scare that I can think of out of the 11 years I've been doing this, because we're very, very careful. There's been a couple of like really intense, difficult shoots. And in that case, I'll have someone like Matt in the water in scuba gear who's backup, who's right there. And in those cases, we're working with like an advanced model or swimmer, but maybe they're wearing a dress and they're going down deep. We always want to have the backup like someone that can be right there with scuba gear, push them to the top, or give them a breath of air.
Yeah, we did one shoot with a girl in a dress, and the pool was 15 feet deep, or maybe almost 20. I don't remember.
She actually sunk like a rock.
Yeah, she was solid muscle. And so all I would do is every shot I would push her up. But that's pretty extreme. That for most of what I think people are going to get, that's just not needed.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, when underwater photography started getting more popular, I've seen videos online of like girls jumping into the ocean off a boat in a wedding dress and like it coming up around them. And I would never ever do that to someone or recommend it. Like that is just asking for, you know, disaster. So definitely, like if you do want to start exploring, like playing with, you know, an underwater camera or your phone, definitely make safety a priority, and don't push anyone ever, like, because it's just nothing to mess around with.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
That was very popular around the first round of people I know that were getting married. The trash the dress photos were very, very popular here in Canada. And I know several people who did it safely, kind of by their family cottage. They would just walk in off the beach, and it was very manageable. And they were either water safety professionals or they had more experience and they had a plan. But there was a lady who died in Quebec probably about 10 years ago that she was a week or two after her wedding, and she wanted to trash the dress. And the sad thing was they had a lifeguard or a scuba person there. I don't remember the circumstances, but essentially just the water level of that water body was elevated due to runoff, and she got swept away, right? So
I think I remember that. That's just heartbreaking.
And that's pretty safe in a pool. It's different when you go to live bodies of water.
Yeah.
That just adds a level of complexity, and it's a different animal.
Anytime we work in a live body of water, I think we always have had scuba help, especially like in the ocean. We have a system where we'll have a safety diver here, someone at the top communicating to me at the bottom, back up on the boat. So it's definitely like well thought out and well planned. And I think most professional underwater photographers that I know of operate in the same way, where like it's just because we all saw those videos where people jumped in dresses and they almost drowned, or in this case, unfortunately, she did drown, and I would never want that to happen. So.
Well, and I think, like you've said, that the bar, or at least from my perspective, the bar in Canada for photography of this type is so low that even just incorporating, like I've shown on Instagram, you know, hula hoops or dive rings or colorful bathing suits, very small tweaks are going to look that much more engaging than what most people are using, right? They're very linear. The photos are taken from the deck. It shows kind of a square pool. Diving board, I loved what you shared, even just kind of having water at eye level or slight changes. That perspective feels more engaging, and you might not even have to get your camera wet, but you're closer to the water, right?
Right.
Well, and for those crisp underwater shots, one of the things is, you know, make sure your pool is as clear and as clean as it can be, obviously. But, you know, everybody knows you put 1,000 people in a pool and it's not going to stay clean that long, at least until it gets a chance to filter. So just think a little bit ahead on some of those things and make sure you don't have a big, massive group of people the day you want to shoot in the water.
That's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because water clarity is really important to get those crisp, clear photos. And you can prevent it, obviously. So if you know you're going to be doing an underwater shoot a couple days before, you want to have your pool guy there or pool woman, and make sure the chemicals are balanced, that the water is clear. I advise people not to put like products in their hair or be like cannonballing into the pool. Is going to create lots of bubbles. So there's lots of things you can do to kind of prevent that, and make sure you have the optimal shooting environment.
And if you have natural light, that's the easiest to shoot through. But if you start adding flashes and other lights, you'll see all the little particles in the water. So that's why the clarity matters, especially for indoor pools.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the themes we talked about a few days ago was just the fact that right now, with so many pools in Canada are either closed or they're only reopening at a very reduced capacity. So perhaps 10 or 15% of fire code. Now is really the time that water quality is easy to maintain, that space is available, that time is available, prime time. You know, you could have a photo shoot at 2:00 in the afternoon that in a normal part of the year, you'd have lots of bookings and lots of activities. So now is a great time to really be thinking, what photos can I take safely, physically distanced, but also too, that there are photographers who may have more availability than they normally do. Their schedules may be more open. They may have more slots where they can fit in projects, and each project is priced according to, what they've got going on. So to reach out and at least have a conversation and see if you can afford them or if you need to wait a year and work up to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to Sarah and Matt. Do you have any final thoughts?
Do we have any more questions?
Some were asked earlier, we might have missed them. I don't know if we got to them or not.
So the questions we had earlier were definitely about a lot of devices. So I'll get you guys to, in the next week or so, maybe Sarah, look at your equipment, like the phone cases or any stabilizers that you think you would recommend, or brands. We'll link to those on the show notes so people can at least browse either the brand websites or Amazon, any recommendations. You gave some apps. I did also link to Paul Macias, was here last year. Many of you will know him as FBH2O on Instagram, Farmers Branch, Texas. He's been doing Instagram for pools for ages. He recommended a whole bunch of apps that he likes. And I mean, there's a gazillion on the App Store, right? Every day there's new ones launching. So just check reviews. Ask people when you like a profile or when you like a certain type of photo, send them a message and ask, what filters or apps are they using?
And don't be afraid to spend that $30 to use the app for a year. Because there's lots of free versions out there. So you might get stuck into trying to find that free version, but this is a business expense. Make that investment, spend the $30, $40, $50 that it costs to buy that app and stick with it. And then you'll have that consistency of using it without their little logo on it. And you're going to keep your photos consistent over time.
And don't just dive into Lightroom and Photoshop. They can be complex. They can be hard to use. If you know how to use it, awesome. They're great tools. They're cheap now. But the reason why there's so many other apps for editing out there is because it cuts the learning curve and it makes it easy for you to get a consistent look.
Keep it simple.
Yep.
But again, if anyone has questions or just wants to talk about how they can improve their visibility in their business, I'd be happy to jump on a call, and Matt can join too, and we can kind of talk about your goals for the year. And I blocked off 20-minute segments on my schedule this week and next week, so I think I put a link in there. Feel free to reach out, and don't be afraid. I'd love to chat with you and get to know you.
I think that's such a great resource. And I also want to double down on what both of you said about paying, because there's small times where this small expense, people agonize over $10 or $30, and it really makes a huge difference. So you mentioned canva.com. I love Canva. It took me a while to upgrade, and the pro version is $140 US a year. It's less than $1 a day. And there's so many additional fonts and features and templates that initially it seemed like a leap, but now, I mean, it's upgraded what I'm doing in so many different ways. It's definitely value added.
Yeah. It's time is money. So, just don't cut corners when it comes to business. You really, again, you just want to represent your best self. So.
And think about some of these tools like InDesign versus Canva, right? It'd be like writing the code for your website versus using Squarespace. In some cases, the level of complication and detail and the resources and all the things that you can pull that, all the things they already have for you therein, they're just there. Use them. Do it fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. To Sarah's point about time is money, I heard a very helpful tool a number of years ago that basically said, think about every project in terms of your hourly wage. So if you make $35 per hour, even personal expenses, you want to get a manicure done, that's $45. Is it worth 1.25 hours of my work time? Or is this photographer worth, 100 hours of my work time? How is that, and that might help you be less emotional about the money, but just looking at the value added to your business or what you're trying to achieve.
That's right. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah and Matt, joining us from Austin, Texas. Flash Pool Productions. You can catch all of their social links on the show notes. I've pinned the doodle in the chat box, so I would encourage anyone who is looking to advance their photography presence of their business to reach out to Sarah, follow her on Instagram and social, and connect with her by phone. Why not? 20 minutes, get some feedback. And honestly, I think for any of you who implement even a tenth of what Sarah and Matt have discussed, you're really going to go above and beyond your competitors in a region, because a lot of pools in Canada are not doing any of this, unfortunately.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, just start small. Start with one thing that you're going to start implementing, and maybe make a goal like throughout the year. Now I'm going to add this, and now I'm going to start doing this. But don't like get overwhelmed about, oh my gosh, all these things we can do. Just start with something simple and basic.
Could be as simple as cadence for keeping your social media up to date with fresh content.
Yeah, or hiring a marketing manager to do it for you.
Yep.
It's worth it.
Yeah, or even booking a photographer for one event. Like maybe you have a marquee event that you can get authorization for that 1 hour. Like you said, maybe you can manage $250 for a 1 hour booking. And then from there you decide, okay, that wasn't so bad. We made it work. Look at all the great photos. I can get approval to do it again, or to do a bigger facility, right? Small chunks is going to make sure that you actually do it.
That's right. Cool. Well, thank you so much for having us. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to end it there. I'm going to say thank you again to Sarah and Matt, and hopefully we'll see some of you for the TikTok session on Wednesday. So have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.